All right, so welcome back to History and Coffee. I know it's been a while, but I had to take a break and do some shit, and I'm back here to, drink coffee and ramble disjointedly about history. Well, today is going to be my first ever video on the subject of the paranormal. I know I've been talking about doing paranormal history for a while. I haven't gotten around to it yet. Um, so, y'all requested it, so get excited. Here it comes. So, for my first video, I'll be discussing my very favorite subject when it comes to the paranormal, and that's Bigfoot. What's the history of Bigfoot? Where does Bigfoot come from? How long have we seen Bigfoots? All that shit. So, the term Bigfoot was coined in the 1950s, of course, after the sightings in Northern California and the famous Patterson-Gimlin film. Bigfoot, of course, coming from the fact that it left big footprints. So, before that, there was no Bigfoot. Before that, it was Sasquatch, Genosqua, Gugway, a whole bunch of other things. A lot of people think that's where it started. That Patterson film was sort of a hoax, and let me fix my camera. And that people didn't really see Bigfoot before then. And that's actually not true. As far back as we've kept records in this country, there has been sightings of Bigfoot. And in fact, as far back as we've kept records in other countries, there's been sightings of Bigfoot going back to prehistoric times. Or rather, no, not prehistoric, because there was all kinds of shit running around back then. But, as far back as there's records, people have been seeing things in China like the Yeren, the Yowie in Australia, the Orang Pendek in Indonesia. I can't remember the name of the one in Russia, but there's one running around Russia too. Of course, the Yeti. Even some of the first people to explore America, starting with actually Henry Hudson. Henry Hudson, when he was exploring what's now upstate New York into Canada, he came across giant, hairy, what he described as wild men. Even what the hell is his name? See, I totally lost it. The guy who first went through the Cumberland Gap. I'm sure you'll think of it and put it in the comments because I can't remember. But he encountered creatures that he referred to as wahoos after the description in the Jonathan Swift book Gulliver's Travels. See, I can remember that, but I can't remember the guy's actual name. Daniel Boone. He was a big fan of Gulliver's Travels, and he came across these giant, hairy, bipedal creatures that he referred to as wahoos, like in the book. Of course, that would have been in the western part of Virginia and into Tennessee, West Virginia, areas like that. Then, of course, you have the Native American traditions that go back, hundreds of years. And every tribe in the country has oral traditions of a tribe of hairy creatures that were roaming around, sometimes wreaking havoc. Sometimes they'd trade with them. Sometimes they'd go to war with them. But it was just a fact of life for them. And then if you ever want to get really into this, you can go into newspaper archives and look up the term Wildman, and you'll see going all the way back, especially in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania had a very large population for the time, but was also very heavily forested. And so there was Pennsylvania was basically the Washington state of the late 1800s, early 1900s. As far as sightings go, that was the Bigfoot hotspot around the turn of the century. So now, that's basically Bigfoot didn't really come from anywhere. It seems like Bigfoot has always been here. And a lot, of course, the Native American traditions, Bigfoot predates them coming to this land. They came here, and there was already these creatures that they call the Sasquatch here. And they have a bunch of different names for them, something like that. Sasquatch, of course, is the most well known because that would be the Pacific Northwest tribes. That's what they called them. So now you've got these creatures, but a lot of people think that it's just, the one, sort of the one we see from the Patterson-Gimlin film where it's walking across the creek bed there and those two guys are filming it. But going off the eyewitness reports, researchers have narrowed it down to what they believe are 4 types. Type 1 being your Patterson, or Patty, as he's known in the sort of Bigfoot community there. Your type 2 is just like Patty, but with very human features. No hair on the face, very human looking, just, big. Your type 3 is same build as Patty, but with a large snout and very large pronounced canine teeth. Sort of looks like he's like more built for being predatory, being carnivorous, things like that. And your type 4 is the weird one. That's what people are starting to call now the dog man. That's getting popular since the sightings in the 1930s up in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, I believe. It's known as the Beast of Bray Road. You could look that up. That's an interesting topic. Like a big bipedal wolf-looking thing. I'll do a video all on that just by itself. So that's your types, and then of course your theories about what they are. There's a bajillion of them. I'll go through some of the most popular ones. Of course, you got your your bipedal, that it's a great ape. It's a bipedal great ape that has somehow remained hidden from us and lives off in the woods. Your second most popular is that it's a species of humans that have evolved possibly from either Homo heidelbergensis or Neanderthals alongside us, but have managed to remain hidden. Then you've got your third most popular, which is that it's a spiritual creature. That of course the Native Americans believe this. Some tribes, not all of them. A lot of the tribes actually just considered them to be another tribe. But in some traditions, they're sort of spiritual guardians of the forest and things like that. And that actually fits in quite well with a lot of the European fairy lore, which is something that could be researched all on its own. It's very interesting. A lot of these traditions of fairies and elves and goblins and things like that, when you look back at medieval texts, they weren't what we think of now in popular culture, but they were actually sort of big, hairy things, kind of like what we think a Sasquatch is. And that could go either way. Either that, this fairy lore could have come from people seeing Sasquatch, or people seeing Sasquatch here is actually evidence that some of this fairy lore is true. So, I mean, it's backed, but it's cool. So, where does Sasquatch live? Every continent. Almost everywhere there's a decent amount of forests, national parks, and things like that. A lot of people think that they're just out in the Pacific Northwest, and that's not true. There's sightings. People see them in New Jersey. They're everywhere. And that is sort of interesting because it puts a lot of pressure on that undiscovered ape theory. If they're so prolific, how come we see them, in somewhat urban areas? There was even a sighting here in downtown Richmond. I don't know how true it is, but, So that's your Bigfoot primer. Of course, if anybody has any questions, post them in the comments. And again, this is not, I'm not presenting any of this crap as true. This is just what I've picked up looking into the Bigfoot thing, and just kind of a basic history and a basic rundown of the field. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.